Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today on Transformational Thursday? Yes, I did say Transformational Thursday because you know why? It is a special edition of Conversations for Humanity with our special guest, Sharon Birn, here today and everything like that. So you're not seeing double Conversations for Humanity because we just had one yesterday. It's literally a completely different show. So we are here with you today on Transformational Thursday. So, again, our special guest has been so humbled and honored to be a part of bringing humanity together in so many great and valuable ways. She wanted to say, "Hey, Chris, I want to share my story. How can I do that?" And I was like, "You got to come on Conversations for Humanity." And it's just that simple. You just have to just show up. And here she is, everything like that. So, good afternoon, Sharon. How you doing this afternoon?
I am doing great, Chris. Very happy to be here. I want to thank you for the opportunity. It's just great to be here with you and with everybody that's going to be watching the replay. Appreciate everybody taking the time out to spend some time with us, and appreciate you giving me, time to spend with you and to get our message out there together. So
Absolutely,
appreciate you.
absolutely. And like I said, I have just learned so much from you, Sharon. I want to get this right out of the gate in and of itself because I've intentionally surrounded myself with people who know what they know far better than me. And I rather to be the completeless. I don't want to put this in a derogatory sense, but I really want to end up being Sharon, the dumbest guy in the room, so I can learn more. I've
I,
said,
I don't take that as derogatory.
yeah,
I actually, um, I subscribe to the same thing. Maybe I say it a little differently, but I subscribe to the same thing. I want to learn till the day I die. And so I believe that we can learn from anybody that we're willing to let ourselves learn from.
right,
Um, you know, I
exactly.
believe, I believe that generations can learn from each other. To be quite honest, I feel like a lot of times, we adults don't give enough credit to the brilliant brains that young people have. And, we need to really embrace, I believe, more intergenerational interaction and learning from both sides. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, I have wanted to find those great people like yourself, Sharon, and like Jesse and Michelle and Keith and Sven and Kimberly and so many great and amazing people from around the world because I just surely know if I could learn maybe one new thing from them a day, then I've had not only a productive day, I've had another step forward in this great and amazing journey that is life and everything like that. And I want to start the conversation off with you here
sure.
is how did the journey of Sharon start? How did that start from the very, you call it the beginning or the transformation of Sharon or whatever that might be for you? But how did that all start for you to get to where you are today? How did that process start? What was the day one for you that you said, I want to be transformed and everything? And I would love to hear you to share your story with us today on Conversation for Humanity.
Well, I think that for me, there's been multiple times in my life where I've said I want to be transformed, you know, um, using your words and putting it that way. Because, again, as I said to you just a few minutes ago, I want to learn and grow. I always aim to be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. So ultimately speaking, Chris, if I'm being very candid, um, for me, the beginning of transformation happened for me probably the day I was born, and I don't say that in a woo woo way or an out there way. I say that because it's not usually the first thing I say about myself because there's so much more to me than what I'm about to say, and most of you probably at this point know this, but I was born with a physical disability. I was born with cerebral palsy, so I actually wasn't supposed to live past 48 hours. Um, Potentially, they told my parents the first 48 hours would tell.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that very moment, you know, the doctors told my parents they thought there was a good chance that I would make it, but not to get their hopes up because I was strong and I had a fighting spirit. So, from that moment on, Chris, my life was consisted of people giving me labels. Um, you know, CP, uh, mild to moderate learning disability, depending on who did the testing, and just full-time wheelchair user, quad, spastic, all these terms that have nothing to do. I don't want to say it has nothing to do with who I am, because having a disability has definitely shaped part of who I am, but
Mm-hmm.
these terms don't define me. So my entire life, I feel like I was transforming in the sense of trying to move beyond the labels and trying to push beyond the labels, because if my parents listened to the labels that I was given and what those labels were supposed to mean about my abilities, then I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be having this conversation with you. I wouldn't own my own business. I wouldn't work part-time in conjunction with what I'm doing, with my own business. So there's a lot of things that I wouldn't be doing. And so I knew from a very young age that I wanted to do two things in this world, and that I was born to do two things in this world. And one was to help people, and the other one was to be a mom. And so my entire life, I kept my eye on those prizes. And thankfully, as I said, my parents didn't believe what they were being told about me, because if they did, they would have kept me in a very segregated school for students with strictly disabilities. I wouldn't have had the education I had. They would have, doctors and staff were telling, my parents, oh, she's going to work in a sheltered workshop. And for those of you who may not know what that was, it was basically where people with disabilities went, and you did, like, you know, manual labor of, like, maybe putting sample perfume bottles in the box, and you made pennies on the dollar. And I'm not putting that down. It was good for some people with certain disabilities. First of all, I believe that everybody should be able to earn a living wage. So I do have an issue with that whole mindset that was around sheltered workshops. And I don't even like that name, but they're not even in existence anymore. But that's what my parents were being told, that that where I was going to wind up. So the reason that I say that is because part of my journey became that I wanted to help people, and I wanted to be the person for other people like myself, who maybe didn't have parents who were advocating for them the way they did, or even if they did have parents who were advocating, be there to support the parents that were trying to advocate, because it's difficult. It's a difficult journey. So that's how it all started. I went for my master. I graduated college, and I went for my master's in education with a specialization in rehab counseling. But even beyond that, um, I wanted to be able to do more. I wanted to be able to have decision making autonomy, financial autonomy, time autonomy, all of it. And so I shifted gears. I experienced a lot of employment discrimination related to or around my disability. I did try to somewhat fight it, but when it was me against, big organizations, it was difficult to prove. And I didn't want to lose my jobs, because at the time I needed my paycheck, and I didn't want to blemish my name in the field, because I wanted to be able to work. But anyway, as time went on, it got worse over time, in different agencies that I went to. And so I finally just said, I need to make a shift, um, for me. And I needed to do it because I also became a single mom because of a divorce. And I needed to be around more physically for my son. And so for me, I needed to do something that would allow me to be here, or to be that here to take care of his needs, and whatever. So I actually talked to some business advisors and some people who knew me, and they encouraged me to go the entrepreneurial route. I know that's not something that everybody has the ability to do. Um, and I'm not, but I am saying that part of what I want to do is let women know that if you have the desire to do it, and you have ability to tap into certain resources, it could definitely be worth a shot, because you're not going to be as torn by your heartstrings of wanting to be, there and present for your kids, and feeling like you have to provide. So that pretty much is how this whole journey started. It's been a fire in me since I'm very little. I've always uh, I believe in people's goodness. I believe in people being seen for their assets and not their perceived deficits or deficits that have been assigned to them. And so I really wanted to be in a position where I could help the world and people really be seen for the gifts that they have to offer the world. Because we all have come here with gifts that we're supposed to share with the world. That's our job. We may not know what that is immediately or even ever completely, but I find that there's too much of focusing on what somebody can't do or something that they're not good at. And I'm not even talking about just people with disabilities, but like when you go into a workplace, it's, you're not doing this fast enough, you're not doing this, and there's not enough of, hey, you're really good at that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but there's not enough of it. And I believe that we should be putting people in positions where they're going to shine, because that's how we all shine. I am not one who does not like to share my experiences and my expertise. I am not threatened by sharing my expertise. I'm not, and I really mean that, because I believe that if I share my expertise, it's going to last in the world. I'm going to impart it on somebody else. I'm also going to learn from interacting with that person. So it's a two-way street. But if I hold on to what I know, what good is that? And I believe I've so many times in my own life and so many times in my clients' lives, I've seen them be held back because of a perceived, deficit. I know I said that before, but a perceived deficit, or maybe they weren't, pulling their weight in a certain position. But if you shifted where they were, they would shine. And that, to me, what seems to be, and I don't mean this in a condescending or conceited way, but what seems to me to be common sense, I have a very difficult time. Like, I don't know why we struggle as a society to put people where they do best. I just, and so for me, that's been part of my journey, Chris. And I really believe that the family, whatever it looks like, I'm not saying it has to be what it used to be, mother, father, sister, brother, white picket fence. It's whatever your family dynamic looks like. I truly believe that the family is the cornerstone and the foundation that our society is built on. And so my goal is to help individuals, and then, specifically moms, but also dads if they're so inclined. It's usually the moms that come forward for the help more so than a dad. And I have worked with men and I'll continue to do so, but I want to help families, starting with, the head of the family, whatever the head of the family is, whoever the family is, help them really become in touch and discover or rediscover what their core values are, so that they can really be living a life that aligns with their core values. Because when we try to be something that we're not meant to be, it doesn't work long term.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if you're doing it all your life. What I'm saying is, it doesn't work, because you're not going to be the best version of yourself you can be. You're going to be, you're going to become a little bit frustrated, bitter, whatever. And so I'm the optimist in me, because I'm an eternal optimist, um, really does believe. And through my work, what I try and do is help parents, families live. I want them to focus on their mental well-being, because I don't believe in compartmentalizing people. I can't stand that. Um, and to be honest, mental health is declining in our country,
Mm-hmm.
especially for our youth, but also for the people that are supporting our youth and that are feeling pulled from, the and from feeling like they have to choose. I want to be an involved parent, but I have to provide. How do I navigate that? And it's a really difficult, and it can be a very lonely road sometimes. especially for a single parent. I'm not saying it's not hard for a dual parent household, but it's really hard when you're a single parent. And what I really want to do is have people focus on, I believe in taking a holistic approach. I believe that you have to deal with the whole person, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of it. But I also have seen that our society, especially, we give physical health much more respect and attention than we do mental health. If somebody says they need to take a self care 10 minutes or a self care day or a mental health day, that's not looked upon as nicely as if you say, I have a doctor's appointment because I got to go have blood work or something like that. And it really doesn't need to be like that. And it shouldn't be like that, Chris. And so I believe that if you can strengthen the head of the family by helping them really get in tune with what their core values are and what they want their life to look like, and if they can design a life where they're living authentically and in tune with their core values, then that's going to help the health of their family. That's going to make their family healthier. And if you make a family healthier, you're going to make communities healthier. And if you make a community healthier, one community at a time, you're going to make society as a whole healthier. And to me, honestly, that's what it's all about. I understand that judgment is going to happen. And I don't think we're going to eradicate judgment completely, Chris. I'm not, I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. But I do believe in that we need to support more and judge less. And I also believe that people who are being judged have to be able to, let it roll off their back. It's not easy, but they have to learn the skills to be able to push it aside and really know that it's okay for them to design a life that is in line with what they see for themselves and their family. Because one of the things that I see, Chris, is that families are fragmented. Families are fragmented because people can't be doing everything, right? A mother or father can't be providing and be there to be present for their kid at every moment that they would want to be. And we don't live in a society anymore where grandparents are there to help or aunts and uncles are there to help. Everybody's really all scoured all over the place. And there's a big divide, not just within families, but in our whole society. And so I really want to work hard with these families to give them a way, a method to reconnect with themselves as individuals, every member, and then connect and reconnect as a family. Because when I help an individual create a life that they envision, I will ask them if they are a mom or a dad. I will ask, so what's your vision? What's your vision for your life? And then what's your vision for your family's life? And then I bring the whole family in. And I say, okay, family, you're a team. Because I'm also a firm believer that social emotional learning starts at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in schools and that schools don't need to be a piece of it. And on the flip side, academics happens at home too. I'm not saying it has to be the primary, but I'm saying that we've even gone to compartmentalizing our education system.
Okay.
Okay, if you're in school, we'll handle the academics. If you're home, you'll handle everything else. But there's also the expectation from both sides that there's going to be social emotional learning, to the point where there are now curriculums being developed for social emotional learning. And there's so much homework being assigned that the parents and the kids don't have time to do that connection on a regular basis, because they're doing too much, you know, let's just get it all done. And it becomes a hamster wheel, because you go to school from 8 to 6 if you're in before care and after care, if you're a child whose parents work, and then you come home. Hi, Michelle. Um, so, um, I think that we're losing ourselves. We're losing, the adults are losing themselves, the kids are losing themselves. And what I'm saying is there's an opportunity, Chris, that we're missing. And the opportunity is this: academic skills can be learned at home, social skills can be learned at home, academics can be learned in school, social skills can be learned in social emotional skills can be learned in school. And you don't necessarily have to have a curriculum for it, because life gives you the opportunity to teach these things. And that's the part I think we're missing. And that's part of what I want to re-educate and kind of enlighten people and let people know that it's okay. I remember having some of my clients say, I don't want my kid to have this much homework, and I'm not going to make him do this much homework, because he needs a chance to be a kid, and we need a chance to connect, and he needs a chance to do chores and learn other things. And it's been a real fight for a lot of these families. And there doesn't need to be an adversarial relationship between teachers and parents. I think that it's a systemic thing that we all need to change, if that makes sense. We need to work, because our society is suffering because of it. And so that's how I see how this whole journey has evolved for me, Chris. Some of it came from the professional experiences I've had with working with families, because I have over 30 years of working with families, from different backgrounds with different disability diagnoses, all the way from intellectual disabilities to mental illness and chemical dependency, or being dually diagnosed, to so I have a lot of experience, and I only say that because I believe that I'm consistently a work in progress. And so I take the information that I have from my professional experience, and even the new experiences that I get from my professional experience. I take all of that information and I infuse it with my personal experience as well. Because again, I don't really think it's fair that we expect people to compartmentalize themselves. You know, I just don't. I think it doesn't work that way. So, I hope that I consider myself, you know, you may have seen that I'm going through a rebranding process. And I mentioned that simply to say that part of what I'm doing in my rebranding is I'm referring to myself as a life designer, because I believe that people should have the opportunity to design their own life and not live a life by default. Because as long as you're alive and breathing, you're living a life. But are you living a life because you think you have to, and you're doing things because you have to do them? Or are you getting to design a life that fits and helps you shine? And so, I mean, I think that's what I would say about that, you know.
Well, for me, Sharon, and you probably have heard me say this, and I've believed it right from the very start for me on this great and amazing journey and community and movement that is bringing humanity together. That I truly believe everything is literally interconnected to everything else. It's already there. And when we
Hmm.
just allow life to happen for us and not to us,
Hmm.
it changes our perception of the world. It changes the way we even maybe even think, changes even the way we actually do stuff in the world, and maybe just maybe even how we connect with people. Because there's some, again, I will go back to what that great book from John C. Maxwell title is: Everyone communicates, few connect. And maybe even in that space, maybe it's time to really connect, but also be aware about how we even communicate. Because again,
Hmm.
like you said earlier, about there's a role that needs to be played for education with our kids, in not only into the EQ, but also understanding the IQ. But
Hmm.
also EQ and IQ literally equals you by very design. It's already there.
Exactly.
So when you really take that component of it and really embrace that side of it from an academic standpoint, that will turn in social into very design. But then when parents are engaged with their kids to such an extent, they really understand where they want to go and why they want to, let's say,
Hmm.
be in band, or they want to be in drama, or
Right.
whatever that might be. Then the next logical thing will end up happening It said when that filters out into other grade levels
Mm-hmm.
and everything, and then it goes up the chain, so to speak. So when you graduating high school and you got to make that choice, do I go to work or do I go to college? Now, maybe the thing you got to really ask yourself then, Sharon, is does the college have the environment for me to really grow and thrive to where not only I'm proud to be a part of that community, but also I'm a part of that learning process, that knowledge process.
Mm-hmm.
And when you allow that to be there, then the next thing you like to see happen is that really flows into our businesses. And if we can get
Exactly.
that there too as well, it'll be a game changer.
Exactly. And for me, Chris, I believe in education, and you know that because we've had many conversations, but I don't necessarily believe that I believe that college is a great thing. Like I said, I knew I wanted to help people, and I knew in order to be able to help people the way I wanted to be able to help people, I was going to need to get a college degree and a master's. I knew it. So I kept my eye on that, on that road. It was difficult for me to get there, but I didn't let anything stop me. But I think that we also have to respect in our society that college isn't for everybody, and that's okay. It's about, again, it's about, you know, I want to help people rise up. I want to help them rise. I have uh, another thing with my rebranding is it's still my business. It's still possibilities are infinite, but we focus on you know, I'm helping. I want people to. We focus when we focus on people's abilities, we help them rise. Right? We lift them up by focusing on their abilities. And now I'm not saying that it is not the role of education to help children maybe decrease an area of deficit. But at certain point, we have to be comfortable with the fact that that deficit may not decrease anymore. It may, but we still, I believe, have to shift our focus from concentrating on decreasing the perceived deficit or the actual deficit, and start focusing on take what their gifts and talents are and help them connect to opportunities to grow to grow those even further. Because I'll tell you what, I'm not going to look for a job back when I was looking, when I was younger, or even today, that requires me to deal with numbers all day long. Math is not my thing. I mean, I know how to take care of my money, and I know how to, do a checkbook and all that stuff and whatever, and make sure stuff's in my bank account and things like that. But math is not my thing. So why would I do that to myself? And why do we have that expectation of others, And I don't believe that he I don't believe that we're doing anybody a service, a child, our communities, a society, if we're forcing kids and young adults, right, as they get into high school, to to focus on things that they just don't grasp. Or maybe they grasp, but they don't light them up. Now, I'm not, look, every job has parts of it that we don't like, even the things we love. I love helping people, but I'll tell you what, I don't like pushing paper, but I learned very early on that if I want to continue to help people, then I have to push the paper. Because for every time I met with somebody, I had to do a case note. I had to do this. I had to do that. So if I didn't push the paper, I was going to lose the part of the work that I enjoyed and loved, and the part that lit me up. So there's going to be aspects of every job that we don't like, and that you have to take the good with the bad. But why are we at a certain point? I truly believe that we need to. I first of all, we need to make education about what I said, designing a life that works for you. Because to say to me that I have to sit through an English lit class, right, and at a college level, when I've just proven that I have this, the English skills because I graduated high school. If English lit has nothing to do with what I'm going to be doing, why? And I'm not picking on it. I'm just saying that this is one of the things that I think we need to really think about systemically, because I don't think we're doing our society a service. And I do think that that is playing into the mental health issues we have with our youth. It's not just that, Chris, believe me, because I could talk to you for 3 hours and plus about what's really going on, from what from the work I've done and what I've seen, and what I hear, and also as a parent of a child that has a mental illness diagnoses. So I can really talk from a very educated standpoint, from professionally being educated and from life experience. And I say that only because, like you said, you learn a lot from everybody that you interact with, and I feel the same way. And I've learned a lot from being my son's parent. And I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about the world, and I've learned a lot about him. And one of the ways I learned so much about him, Chris, and I've made mistakes. So let me start out by saying that I've made mistakes. I am not saying I'm a super mom. I'm not saying I've got it all figured out, because believe me, I don't. But I will say this: I know who my kid is. And the reason I know who he is because I've always had an open line of communication with him. Does that mean he's always come to me when he should have? No. He should have come to me a lot earlier with certain things, and I heard it through the grapevine or whatever. 6 months later, he finally got the courage to tell me. But my point of saying that is, when we're putting so much academic pressure on our kids, we're not giving them the space to really figure out who they are. What we're doing is teaching them that they need to be able to pass tests. So we're really not preparing them for life. I remember sitting in meetings with my son's administrative team and his teachers, and they'd say, well, but we're trying to prepare him for life, and if he's not doing his home, and I remember saying, I hear you. People have to learn, they have responsibilities, they have to get it done. But the truth of the matter is, when we go to work, yes, there are times we have to work overtime. There are times where, like you were telling me before we came on live, your wife worked an insane amount of hours the other day. And so that does happen. But these kids are coming home with hours and hours and hours worth of homework. And there are jobs, when you leave that job, you're done for the day. There is no work past work. Other times there will be. But the joy of there being no time, no work after work sometimes, is that you get to experience who you are. You get to, engage with people on a social level. But we're not giving our kids the opportunity to do that. We're teaching them to be able to take a test, but they're not able. 90% of the reason that people don't keep jobs, Chris, is not because they don't know how to do the job task that they're being asked to do. It's because of all the ancillary skills, all the interpersonal skills. That's 90% of the reason that most people get fired. That says us something. That says a lot. And what makes us ignore that? It drives me crazy. And I still believe that there are ways for us to bring back some of the family connection. I really do. And I'm going to go to my grave fighting for that, because, I want to see, if I don't live to see the change fully, I want to know that what I've done has at least started the conversation, if not started the change. Because everybody says a lot of people say what they're seeing, but there aren't a lot of action takers. And I'm sorry, I was going to say I'm sorry for saying that, but I'm not sorry for saying that. Because if we don't take action, nothing's going to change. And we may not have all the answers, but the only way you're going to know, Chris, is to start taking action, see where the actions lead, and be willing to adjust. And be willing to, so that's how I see it, Chris.
Well, when you really think about it, though, Sharon, of course, the old adage is true. Actions speak louder than words. I absolutely get that, understand that, and I even embrace that. But also, maybe it starts with the conversation that starts it off. because without even having a conversation, and then you just take action, but you then again you really don't know where you want to go or how you want to even get there. Maybe the conversation with that in tow starts that whole process off, because
Agreed.
then when you literally can be able to see what Sharon sees or even believes, and then in turn they are allowing you for them to see what they see and believe from your perspective, then maybe that will be the kind of like the building blocks into the collaboration and connection kind of dynamic. Because when you allow that to be there and you get really curious about what
Communication is everything, Chris. Communication is everything. And conversations are everything. What I'm saying though is, if I sit down with the teenagers that I'm even the teenagers that I work with, and I work with a lot of teenagers right now, okay? If I sit down with the teenagers and I just try to have a conversation like I'm having with you, Chris, even though they know they're coming to me to have, a conversation, I lose them after like 5 minutes. Literally, after 5 minutes, they're somewhere else in their head. But if I engage them in either an activity, while we're talking, or I purposely gear the conversation towards something that they're interested in, it's a totally new ball game. So I don't disagree with you that things have to start with a conversation. And people have to learn, in my opinion, to agree to disagree in a healthy way. Because we can have a conversation and we don't have to agree, Chris, but we have to agree to respect where each person is coming from. And so that to me is another really important life skill that we need to teach. And what I was saying to you earlier is, we can have all the conversations in the world, right? But when we if it's just about a conversation, sometimes, especially when we're talking about teens and children, they can feel like they're being talked at, and you don't want people to feel like they're being talked at. You want them to feel and know that a conversation is a back and forth, it's reciprocal, kind of thing. So I don't disagree with you, and I think that there are ways that we can be doing it much more effectively. Is my point, you know. And I'll say it again right here on, I've said it like 3 times, I think. I don't claim to have all the answers. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life. I'm going to make more, but I don't see mistakes as mistakes necessarily. I see them as learning opportunities and opportunities for growth. And I really think what you said is so true, Chris. And I know I've heard you say it so many times, but perception is everything. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on how, and if people can't try to see something from somebody else's perspective, you're not going to get anywhere with anything or anybody, because the reality is, the only way that we can really come at a situation is from our own perspective,
Mm-hmm.
because it's what we know.
Correct. Correct.
So, but there has to be a way to bridge those gaps. And I think there are. And part of the ways I think we can bridge those gaps is by being a little bit more open. Today I was in an audio room and I didn't get to speak because LinkedIn Gremlins pushed me out. But people were asked to tell, what is your one word that would describe your communication style. And if I had gotten to answer that question, my answer would have been open, because I know, and I say this confidently, that I have a very open communication style. I'm very willing to listen, and I'm very passionate, and I don't apologize for that. So, and you've witnessed my passion, and so sometimes my
Mm-hmm.
passion can overtake me, and I freely admit that, and I'm working on it. I'm not going to apologize for being passionate, but I am aware that sometimes it overruns, and I'm aware of that. But at the same time, the other thing I know about myself is that I'm very open to hearing what the other person has to say, and I'm very open to being able to, or to agreeing to disagree, because for me, it's not about me. It
Mm-hmm.
really isn't. I know people might say, "Oh, she's full of crap." It really isn't about me. It is about the legacy I want to leave, Chris. because I think you asked me this in a different way earlier. And I just want to say the legacy that I want to leave is not how many letters I had after my name or anything like that. And I'm not putting down education. But what I want to be remembered for is for who I am and for what I stood for. And I think that if we as a society can come at it from that angle more, I think that we would see a lot less of a divide.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a firm believer, again, that we have to, as the adults in this world right now, whoever is an adult, we have a responsibility to take accountability for helping bring our youth to a healthy equilibrium because they are the futures of this world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I go to bed thinking about. And I go to bed thinking about, okay, what can I do tomorrow differently than I did today towards that goal?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, this community that you started, Chris, is about bringing humanity together. And I love that. And I love the message that you stand, that bringing humanity together stands for. And I just, I cannot sit back and watch what's happening and not be the change that I want to see. And that's what I was saying to you before about action takers. Being part of being an action taker is a willingness to have a conversation. But we also have to move beyond the conversation and
Mm-hmm.
start putting words into action because that's the only way we're going to know what's going to make the change. And that's all I meant by what I said. And maybe I was a little long-winded to get back there and but it's just I'm really passionate about what's happening in the world. And I really just want to see this world could be so much better. And I really don't think we have to change as much as we think we have to change in order to see a substantial difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like many times that I've shared with everyone in our great and growing community that is bringing humanity together. I said this: when we put out a good intention and we allow flow to be there, which is also interconnected to change, because
Right.
change is a thing that's always constant throughout life. It's
Mhm.
always going to be there. But then we also, when we allow alignment and agreement to come into the mix, again, like you said before, you don't have to agree to disagree to a certain extent, but maybe you can come into maybe alignment first, or even start in agreement first, and then you guys together say, let's take the journey to the other side. Let's get
Mhm.
there. And maybe that journey is just as important as the goal that you want to reach.
There's
And
no doubt.
just
Yeah.
by allowing that to take hold, then you can have people on your team or in your community or in your schools that can be, again, as I will go back to what Julia Darce says in her great TEDx video, and I'll put it in the comment section for people to watch it, is maybe we do it from three key points. We choose curiosity over clash. We use conversations as a climbing wall and
Mhm.
maybe an awesome opportunity to create more opportunities there within, and then move the needle and dialogue forward. And then maybe at the end of the day, Sharon, then we can all be rooted in common purpose.
The thing I agree with you, Chris. The thing is, I think we're I think we're more rooted in common purpose than we realize. I think that we've gotten away from the fact that we are more rooted in common purpose than we realize. And I think that so many times people are so interested in being right or
Mm-hmm.
proving their point that it takes us even further away from the fact that we really have a common purpose. Because I know when most people that I speak with and most of the families that I work with, they want to have more time to spend together. And even your teenagers who are breaking away from their families and their peer groups are becoming important. When you get those teenagers off to the side they will tell you, yes, their peer group is very important, but they still want to spend time with their parents. They may not want to do it as much, but what their parents are thinking and feeling about them still matters very, very much. They're not going to let you know that because that'll ruin their, their 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 egos and it'll ruin their reputation. But that says a lot. When I'm sitting with my group of teenagers and they say to me, "Well, I want to spend more time with my parents, but my parents are always working, and I know they have to work, but because that says a lot. That says a lot of what goes on." See, Minnie agrees, but yeah, it's so it's not easy, Chris. It's not easy to, but I do think it's more. I think it's more simple than we're making it out to be. You know, I think we as humans have this great ability to turn the simple into complex. And that really, look, I'm guilty of it myself. And I'm not saying that I'm not, but I try to become aware of, I try to notice when I'm doing the things that, when I'm making a situation more complicated than it needs to be, or something like that. And I think that if people were more honest with themselves, Chris, and they felt free enough to be honest with communities and with their bosses and everything else, I think that the systems would change. But people are so afraid to be that honest because they're afraid of retribution. Or, I know many people right now that are really unhappy for certain reasons, but they won't say anything to their bosses because they need that paycheck. And many people are working 2 and 3 jobs just to get by. It's not even to do extra at this point. People used to work overtime so they could spend extra, save extra money for a vacation or something. But now it's just to put food on the table. And I think that and that's the thing too. I think people forget that kids, they're just little humans. They're not like little versions. Like my son's not a little version of my younger version of myself. He's not somebody that doesn't have emotions or isn't aware of things. Kids, depending on their age, may not be able to articulate what they're thinking and feeling because they may not have the words, they may not have the social emotional intelligence yet, but that doesn't mean they're not aware and they're not feeling scared or uncertain or any of it. And on the flip side, it's not all negative. They might be very excited, but they don't know how to deal with that excitement and express it in words. So they get a little crazy with their behavior. And so I'm striving to make a difference in helping people. I told you that I put out a new offer yesterday, and my offer, I call it story crafting. And the reason is, the thought process behind this was simply this: that we all have stories that we're telling ourselves. We all have narratives that we're telling ourselves over and over again. And those narratives come from family experiences, from coworker experiences, from teacher experience, from anybody you encounter, right? And also, as we get older, they come, we've taken over. We don't even need people to tell us those things anymore. We'll just do the job for them a lot of the time. And so I really want to help people rewrite the scripts and the stories that they're telling themselves. Because what we tell ourselves truly is what we create. And so I want to help people be able to reframe and rewrite the scripts of what they're telling themselves, about their family, about the world, because it really all starts right here. It all starts, in our minds. And I know that might sound like, woo, she's getting off there on another planet. But the truth is, our minds are very powerful. Mm-hmm. And we sometimes as humans, I don't think we even realize how powerful they are. And so here's the thing. There is a lot in our world that is out of our control. There just is. But there's many things or many aspects of things that are even out of our control. There's little pieces in there that we can control. So one of the things I also help my clients do, and colleagues and everything, when I do collaborations, I look for the pieces that we have the ability to do something about.
Mhm.
And I focus, I say, okay, so this sucks, but this is something I can do about. I can't change the whole thing, but I can work on this little part of it. And then that does a few things. It helps me feel better about myself, helps me feel better about being productive and doing something to be the change. And the reason I mention this is because this might sound, you might say to yourself, how did I go from here to there? But look, when a young boy or a young girl spends time with their parents, I don't care what they're doing, and I don't care which parent they're doing it with, whether they're baking or whether they're fixing a car, or and it could be either parent doing either. I'm not being gender specific, but there's so much that happens right there, Chris. There's so many skills. And that's what I'm saying. There's the social skills you're learning, there's the problem solving skills you're learning, there's you know, there's the social emotional skills that are going into, there's the academic skills.
Mhm.
When you're baking, there's math and reading involved. When you're fixing a car, there's science, there's chemistry, there's math, depending on what part of the car you're fixing, because there's geometry. Um, you know, my son wanted to redo his room. A friend of mine's son wanted to redo his room when they became teenagers. They want to redo their room to be a bigger kid's room, and get rid of the superheroes and everything else. So my my friend was helping me with my son's room a little bit because physically I couldn't do it. And we were using it as the opportunity to teach the kids, because her son actually turned around and said, wow, so this might be where geometry comes in handy, because he was using a level to like level something. And then he was using a different tool. I don't remember what it was, but he had to get the angle of something. And right then and there, a light bulb went on, because he doesn't plan on using geometry for much of his life. He doesn't. But the excitement that he had, even as a 15-year-old, when he realized there was a real life connection between what he was learning in that chair when they were talking angles and, the Pythagorean theorem and all that, when he could make the connection, you know, it meant more. It meant more. So I'm just saying, I would like to see a world, and I want to be part of making this change, where we go back. Yes, let the kids learn how to take a test. And that has always been part of school, and that will probably always be part of school. But there's no reason that we shouldn't be infusing learning opportunities all throughout our day and all throughout our life. And teachers can be teaching certain things, and parents can be teaching certain things, and it can be done in both environments, and we can be working together to do it more efficiently and more effectively. And
Mhm.
that's, I know you're all about collaboration, and this all for me boils down to, it takes a village. And I know we've all heard that saying of, it takes a village to raise a child, and it does. You can't do it alone. Even if you're a single parent, you're not really doing it alone. You may have difficulty finding people to help you, but you have to get the help sometimes. You just can't do. But it takes a community, it takes a village to get a community goal done. I mean, think about it, Chris. You started bringing humanity together because you have a vision, but you know that you can't, you will not reach your vision if you don't collaborate with other people. So collaboration is just it's I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, but it's a natural part of life. And I think we're getting too compartmentalized in life in general. And I think we just need to go back to, infusing everything, into every experience, whether we're a youngster or an adult, because we're our biggest obstacles, I think,
Mhm.
honestly, So that's
When you really think about it, Sharon, collaboration comes from connection.
mhm,
It's already interconnected. It's already there. So that's a natural progression because everything starts with a relationship.
Hmm.
So the relationship is literally the antithesis of the whole dynamic of everything that comes after that. It's the very beginning. So when you look at it from that context, again, you allow alignment and agreement and flow and intention to all be kind of be there in and of itself. Everything else has a new different take on it because again, your perception won't be hindered by what you thinking that you see, but what is actually there. And then when you do
Hmm.
it from that kind of context, the next thing you know, you can see the opportunities then come more into focus, into more clarity, because you can see the opportunities. Because again, we may not be everyone's cup of tea. That's without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
But then again, if you just allow those things to be there and you keep that door open and say, through the gift of invitation, I'm going to extend this out to you, and it's a matter for them to say, not only am I going to answer that call when that knock comes on my door, but are they going to take that step through? But then again, we still want to be that there for them because it's not a matter of if they go through that door. It's only a matter of when they do. But we got to still open that up for them to such an extent. Maybe again, they just don't know what they don't know. But then when we can connect with them and collaborate with them on a deep and meaningful human level, and they are really understanding that they are being seen and being heard and being valued for who they really are, not because of what they do, because what we do is a
Right.
natural byproduct of who we are. And then
Right.
when you do it from that kind of context, that changes the whole dynamic because then again, you're adding value to people because you can't value people if you don't value them. So by just letting that be, that creates a whole different dynamic and chain of events.
Don't disagree. But the one thing I want to add to that, Chris, if you don't mind, is not you're none of us are everybody's cup of tea. We can't be,
Correct.
right? And yes, we I still believe that we have to be cordial and we have to work with people that we might not be their cup of tea and they might not be ours. But at the same time, we can leave the door open and not slam the door shut in their face. But at the same time, they're not if they're not gelling, if we're not gelling with each other and each other's mission, then leave the door open because there may be an opportunity for collaboration where the collaboration will work. But at the same time, it's been my experience. I've had to learn because I said to you earlier that I'm an eternal optimist and initially I see the good in everyone. And that's a quality that I appreciate about myself. But I have had to learn that although I can see the good in everyone, and I hope that people see mostly the good in me. I mean, I have flaws, we all do, but I'm okay with not being everybody's cup of tea anymore, Chris. It used to bother me. Now it doesn't bother me as much because if I'm not somebody's cup of tea, don't be rude. Don't slam the door in my face. If there's an opportunity for us to work together, let's put the mission, whatever that mission is, ahead of our personal, our interpersonal feelings about each other, however you want to say it. But at the same time, there does come a point where it's okay to say, hey, I'm not your cup of tea. And, or maybe you prefer, I know I prefer coffee. So I'm going to go find somebody over here that I'm a little bit more aligned with. Doesn't mean that I'm going to slam the door in their face and not leave opportunity open. But I have become much more aware and much more intentional about where I put my energy because I used to spend so much energy trying to get people to see things from my perspective because I didn't want people not to like me or not to feel like I wasn't understanding their perspective. It really bothered me when people were not thinking that I was understanding their perspective. And to be honest, it still does. But I don't feel that I need to stand there and fight until they do because I've learned that I could fight until I'm blue in the face and they may never see it from my perspective, and that's okay. It doesn't make them wrong, it doesn't make them bad, it doesn't make me wrong or bad. So while we need to keep doors open and not slam doors in people's faces, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, I do believe there comes a time where we have to say, okay, I'm going to leave the door open in case we have to collaborate or in case there's a way that we can collaborate. But I have a mission that I want, and I'm going to go search out somebody, you know, who's more aligned. Doesn't mean I'm going to bash you, but So that's just what I wanted to add to that, Chris.
Absolutely. I would love that. And again, thank you so much, Michelle and Jesse, for chiming in today. We greatly appreciate you. And we
Yes,
would love to have you on your show today, but I guess you wanted to cheer Sharon on from the
they were
comments.
hiding in the bushes, Chris.
Yeah, they're hiding in the bushes. No worries, no worries. But
And
Sharon,
I just want to say before we go, Chris, we are the three of us are still uh, working on Thrive and Thrive, the Thrive Alliance and the community center, which will be virtual and in person type of programs, and all of what I talked about today that I'm doing as an individual is is everything that we're covering in Thrive also, because we do know that we're doing it on a smaller scale individually. And that's not to say that we're not great at what we do, but we also know that by combining our passion and mission together, we can have that much more of an impact. So we're still working,
absolutely.
on that as well.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'm so humbled and honored to have Jesse and Michelle and you a part of this great and growing community and movement that is bringing humanity together. And that's where it all started.
Yeah.
Because then again, it probably would have never occurred if you guys didn't get in this group. And that's,
No, and we've said that, all three of us have said that, Chris.
yeah,
We're very open. When people say, "How'd you meet?" we say that we met through bringing humanity together, and now look at where we are now. So
yeah,
we we
yeah.
we definitely each one of us say it when we're together in a group, and I know that we also say it separately. So and we're grateful, that we had the opportunity to meet.
No, I am actually internally grateful to all of you because like I said, I've learned so much and will be continuing to learn so much from all of you. And yes, Michelle's hiding in the bushes. She's actually incognito, so she's just
I
putting
see.
her sunglasses on so you don't see her and everything. But like I said,
You guys are funny.
yeah. So that is why I'm just so humbled and honored that I can be in each all of your all's lives, and then you can be in mine, because that's truly a blessing. But Sharon, I want to turn it over to you. Share some final thoughts with our audience tonight.
Some
What will be probably maybe the thing that can lead them into a transformation and leave them some words of wisdom of the word of the day, whatever that might be. But the
I want to say this, and it might be something that you've heard me say before, Chris, and it might be something some of your audience has heard me say before, but I truly uh, believe it, and that is that we are not we are greater than our circumstances. Our circumstances do not have to define us. Um, we have the power within us to make the change that we want to see and that we want to be, and it can be done one small step at a time. So if there's something that you're not happy with, you can change it, but you have to be kind and patient with yourself, because we are greater than our circumstances, and you too can get to be in a better place. Yes, choice is freedom. I don't know what happened to you, Chris, because I can't see you anymore. But oh, there you are. But that is I think one very important thing for me to leave people with is that we are greater than our circumstances, and we do not have to be defined by our circumstances. And I think, with how I started the show today, talking about my road to transformation, I believe happened before I was even aware that it was happening, because of my birth being such a being born too much premature and all that went around that. But I didn't let my circumstances define me. And before I was able to do that, my parents didn't let my circumstances define me either.
Mhm.
And I'm very grateful for that. So, and that could be anybody at any stage in time. And the other thing I want to leave people with is, please, it's not, life is not a sprint. It is more of a marathon. So give yourself the time that you need to accomplish your goals, and break your goals down into smaller goals, so so they so that you can attain them. Because success, we've heard this before, but success breeds success. And the very last thing that I'll say, Chris, is that I want to leave everybody with the opportunity to really, I want to give them permission to give themselves kindness, patience, and grace, because everything is a process, and you should treat yourself the way you treat others. So if you're patient with others and you're kind with others, you deserve to give that all back to yourself as well.
Well said, well said. And thank you, Sharon, and of course, Jesse and Michelle for being a part of this great and growing community and mission that is bringing humanity together. You guys are going to do great things together and thrive. We'll be not only alive and well, it's going to thrive and
Well,
be well.
thank you, Keith, and Chris. I don't know why I called you Keith. Sorry, but thank you, Chris, and thank you for having me today. And I can't thank you enough. And I'm grateful, and I know that I speak to many people that are connected with bringing humanity together, and I know that we're all grateful for the fact that you brought this community together.
Yeah, definitely a marathon. Great advice. And yeah, absolutely, 110%. So, Sharon, thank you so much for sharing your story with us here today on
Thank you.
Conversations for Humanity. And we'll be looking forward for you guys for our next episode. Of course, it'll be next week. There might be a twofer, you may never know. But like I said, be on the lookout for Conversations for Humanity every Wednesday on my LinkedIn page and also on our business page here, Bringing Humanity Together. And if you would love to share your story on Conversations for Humanity, please click that link already in the comments section of today's call, and we would love for you to come share your story too as well. So from all of us here at Bringing Humanity Together, an Adaptive Strategies Group, and our great and growing community that is Bringing Humanity Together, we are so thankful and honored to have Sharon with us today. We'll see you on the next Conversation for Humanity next week. So you guys have a great day. Make your day. Have a wonderful and transformational Thursday.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, everybody.